Welcome everyone to Paranormal Roundtable. It's your host Mushu. This week, we're missing Wolf and Sal. We decided that I could just carry the show, so we're gonna talk about some cat stories and some dog stories, like the names for the cat and Banjo, I guess, like where I found him, how great of a dog he was. I don't really have any stories because I didn't know I was doing this, but well, I guess we could just start by talking about me. Well,
okay, all right. Enough of that. I'm here, folks. Don't run away and turn.
I can never carry the show by myself.
Oh my gosh, I don't think anybody can. PRT is too big.
It's a group. It's a group.
You need 2-3 hands to hold them from each person. Just kidding. Here we go, guys. We're here to talk today to you. And I gave Tony the option of what we're going to talk about today.
Well,
so I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, before we do all that, though, we got a couple of things we got to say. I mean, it's email.
I don't care about that.
Okay.
So anyways, I'm just kidding. DasWolfman, DasWolfman88 at gmail.com. DasWolfman88 at gmail.com. So everybody hit me up, send me your emails, whatever, and we'll try to get if you got some crazy stories, we'll try to get them on the air, and we'll get you going.
Yeah, and also don't forget if you have the money and you want to send us some money, we do have a PayPal in the description if you're on YouTube, and just check it out and donate whatever you can if you want to.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Yep,
I mean,
it's appreciated. Like I said, it helps us pay for the show. So, and the other thing, you like and subscribe. And spread the word about PRT and how great we are. And we're getting merchandising together, and I believe we covered that on some of the last episodes. Some of the comments were really good. The last few shows we've had really good, feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten some really good feedback, and Tony seems to be well-liked. People miss Sal, too.
Well, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but and if Sal has he's dealing with what he has to deal with, and when he comes back, he comes back. Now, folks, we are going to have some interviews, discussions that we did with some other people coming up, and Sal will be a part of those because those were recorded a while back, and so those will be played coming up pretty soon, and so probably going to be in the next week or two. We'll be playing those. One was a couple that we did. We did a show together with them. They do ghost demon research, I guess. I guess I'd say demon, like it is the demonologist, kind of like the Warrens did. They do they go to these locations and they.
I don't think I was a part of that.
I don't think you were part of that. No,
but
that'll be coming up pretty soon. We recorded those. We're going to be redoing a couple of interviews that we had. I know that there was another person that we had on the show named Sarah Chandler that we did a show with her way back, and we're trying to figure out where to fit it in, and we're going to fit that one in pretty soon too. So Sarah, if you're listening, just bear with us. We appreciate you coming in. She actually came to the studio and recorded with us. She came and met us in person.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So anyways, we got some things coming up. That'll be coming up in the future. But tonight, I don't even know what we're going to talk about.
Yep. I mean, I like it this way. I like just, you give me the topics and I choose, because then it kind of makes it to where you have your stories, but it's kind of like, I like having the choice of deciding what we want to talk about. And tonight, I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but last week we talked about the house that you worked at, and we mentioned the old man. And we mentioned when he was in the closet.
If that's what that was.
If that's what that was. Yeah. But how it was a shadow, basically.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
Shadows.
Shadow
people.
Shadow people. Okay. All right, because I was all right, kind of in the dark here. No pun intended. But the shadow people is a huge, that is a huge subject. That is hard to.
Our picture is a shadow person, basically. Our on Facebook, it's a shadow person.
I thought we changed the logo.
We have
that orange moon with the weird looking creatures now.
Oh,
it was the Hat Man.
The Hat Man.
Hat Man. Yeah. Now, like I said, it's a very vast subject. I could do probably half a dozen shows on shadow people. I have a lot of shadow people stories, and Tony knows that because he's privated the emails too. We get tons of shadow people stories. I can take you back to shadow people from way back when I was doing security at many different places. We've seen shadow people, but those will be included in the shows that we do about those particular hauntings. We have gotten stories of shadow entities that look like Dogman. They look like Bigfoot. Shadows that look like dinosaur-looking creatures. We've gotten stories of shadow people being aggressive. We've got them of just being benign and just being there. I mean, it's a bevy of stories that we have collected about shadow people. So I guess where do we begin? I mean, that's such a vast subject to delve into.
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I guess we could start. Like, I know on the Halloween episode we talked about a guy in Detroit that had a shadow man attack.
The homeless guy.
The homeless guy. I don't want to call him a homeless guy because he's not homeless anymore, but he was homeless at the time.
He was unfortunately homeless.
Unfortunately homeless, yes. There have been so many shadow people incidences that it's like, let me give you one. I can tell you this one. Folks, I gave Tony the choice of like 3 or 4 different subjects, so I kind of had to be prepared for this. So let me grab the pages that have the shadow people stuff on there. Here we go. Okay, now I'll tell you this one. There was a guy who was renting an apartment. This happened in England. I want to say Lancashire or Lancashire.
Lancaster?
No. It's called Lancashire, something like that. Folks from UK that listen to me, forgive me. I'm not British. I'm not British. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know your language.
Okay, that was better. The first half was not good. But the second half, you pulled it back.
We can always talk like this. I don't know.
Let's not do that. We don't need to lose viewers over our bad accents.
But he was living in a flat, as they call it, and he had a roommate. Okay, this was weird. He had a roommate that had died, and the guy died like the day before or something. He had died. Like he had what do you call it? Asthma, real bad, and so he had died, and or not the day before, it was like that the night that the guy died. If I remember the story, if I'm saying it correctly, please don't be mad at me, sir, if you're listening. Now, this story he gave me a long time ago, but he woke up in the middle of the night and he saw a shadow standing at the foot of his bed, and he knew that it was in the shape and form of the guy that he lived with, and he came to the realization that, whoa, that can't be my roommate because he passed away. Yeah. He had had an asthma attack and he had died the day before. That was just a very brief encounter. When he sat up, bolt upright, it was completely in the shape and form of his roommate.
How do you know?
He could tell by looking at it was him.
Yeah.
Like he knew it was him. And the guy's name, I'm not going to say the guy's name that told me the story, but the guy that had died, his name was Paul. And so when he said his name, the guy just kind of waved and put his hand up and then went out the door. And he said that it was completely black. Like it was black. Like, you couldn't penetrate black. Yeah. Was very adamant that it was black. Now, when he said the guy's name, he knew it was him. Like it literally it interacted with him. Now, like I said, it's not a real long encounter. And then, of course, after that, he moved.
No,
he moved out after that. You moved to do it with his sister. But it was one that I was given and I read, and there's a lot of them like that. I mean, that's like an example, just for an example.
Like a real quick one.
But real short, very brief encounters with these creatures. Now, there is one that I got and that I showed my wife that is a terrifying one. Now, a lot of people want to hear those. They want to hear the really scary ones, and I'll get to that one in a minute. When I was living in the house that I lived in, I'll reiterate this if it's already been told, there were a few shadow incidents. One was the shadow of a little girl that appeared on the Jalis door curtain, and I was sitting in what was kind of like my study, and I could see out of the study because it was open. There was no door, and you could see out and go and see straight into where she would, where it looked like a little girl. I mean, it looked like the image of a little girl. And I was staring at it, and I was like, what is that? And so I got up and walked out of that area and going toward the den where that image was, and it began to fade away. Like it began to go like somebody was stepping away from it, and it began to become lighter, and then it just vanished. And I pulled the curtain, and there was no little girl there to make that shadow. If people remember, I think I've talked about that one. And then there was another one where
me and Taz,
me and Willie. I was on one couch, he was on the other. They were like in an L, and we were watching TV, and I fell asleep. and I wake up to him, trying to get my attention from the other side of the room, telling me, hey, there's something there. And I look up and I see this big shadow
entity.
Yeah. And it unfurled like what looked like wings and went into the wall of my room.
That's where you threw the sock at it, right?
Yeah.
That was funny.
I actually threw a rolled up sock at it, folks. And because I didn't know what I was looking at, this was way back in the day. And I, was like, what is that? And because it just looked like a giant blob, like just standing there at first. And so I threw a rolled up sock at it. And that's when what looked like wings or something came off of the back and it moved through the wall into my bedroom. There was another shadow incident where I had a guy, this dude Rob, that was a good friend of ours, that was coming and feeding our dogs when I was out of town, because I would go out of town a lot back then. And he went to the backyard. He didn't even have a key to the house. He was just going in the backyard to feed the dog that was in the backyard, because that dog was a big German Shepherd, and he was not he was not a house dog.
Caesar?
Yeah, he could go in the house if I was there with him and Ivan was there, he would go inside, but he was so high strung, he was rambunctious, he would knock stuff over, and he was not house trained correctly. He was just not real good in the house. Yeah, so this guy would go over there, he was feeding him, and I believe Ivan was with me. Ivan would travel with me sometimes. And so Caesar was in the backyard. He was a big, mean German Shepherd in that neighborhood. You kind of had to have somebody to protect your stuff. But he knew Rob pretty well. So Rob was going back there to feed him one day, and Caesar was hiding up in the corner of the yard. It was a big backyard, and he was whimpering. And so he thought, this is weird. Something's wrong with the dog. Maybe he's hurt or he's sick or something's wrong. So he goes over there and starts trying to get him to come to him. Come on, boy, and he wouldn't come. And he went up to him and kind of petted him and played with him and tried to get him to follow him toward the back porch where the food and everything was. And he wouldn't go. He began to growl and then bark. And then my friend heard what was like the crunching of leaves behind him. And he turned around, and right there on the wall, he said it was on the wall, what looked like a blob with legs, just the way he described it was like a blob moving, like almost like a round blob. You could kind of make out like the top of it, like a pointy head and like legs. And it was just moving along the wall, but it was using legs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's just, I'm just trying to make sense of it. Cause like, let's say you go outside and you see your shadow, like it's not a perfect, like it's just a real, like it's not a perfect form of you. Like that's what you're saying. Like it's very like those walking signs on those street lights. Yeah, like it's just like a quick like a symbol or whatever. So that's what you mean. Like it's not, or like
that's what he told me. Okay. I mean, that's the only detail. He tried to explain it to me, and I think Loki were there one day, and he was trying to explain it to us how and Willie too. He was trying to tell us all what it was, and we were just like, what, And I'm pretty sure Chief remembers that incident too, but I don't, we couldn't make out what he was talking about. Like we never did figure that out. Now I know Diablo, my brother, he at one point had seen like a shadow, like kind of like it was like 2-dimensional, like kind of crawl. I think it was him or Squid, one of them, that it went across the wall like it was sliding, like it was like it was like almost like it was a part of the wall. And then it was just sliding, and it like wrapped itself around and went into one of the rooms, and it went into that bedroom that was at one time Squid's bedroom, and then later it was D's bedroom, and then later it was Squid's bedroom. But yeah, it's something that went in along the wall in the hallway. And then we had this shadow thing that would jump in and out of the mirror. And I know in episode 2, folks, if you go back and listen to episode 2, we talk about it. I don't know exactly what numbers the episodes are with Scorpion, when him and then later Diablo, or I don't know if you know, Anthony, was it 3 or 4?
I think 2 is
me.
2 is you, the intro, and I think 3
I think it was 3, and then 4 was either Scorp and then D, or D and Scorp, whatever. And then later on, I don't know which episodes they were, but
then you brought in Chief.
Chief, yeah. And Willie, we call him Taz or whatever. Taz has talked about, he would come on the show and talk about it. But the problem is that he does have a slight speech impediment, that he's a little like he doesn't really And then, Squid, I don't think he really has any interest in reliving those nightmares.
Outside that, doesn't have the time.
Yeah. Well, I think he's got the time.
Oh, really? He's just avoiding it?
I don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants to talk about it, to tell you the truth. And now there was another friend of mine who, this is crazy. Okay, he was working at a hotel. This was okay. I know exactly which hotel it is. It's on I-35 in South Austin, but I am not at liberty to say the name of the hotel. And also, it was once a client of ours. And the guy that worked there, he was the guy that checks people in and all, I don't know what they're called, night auditor or whatever. And he was telling me that one day, one of the this is when they began to do the remodel and then changed the name of it or whatever. It's a very old hotel. It's been there for 80 years or something. He told me that somebody had complained that there was somebody coming into their room, and it was somebody that was here on business from like some other city. And they complained that there was somebody in their room, and it happened 2 or 3 nights in a row. And they kept saying, why is there a housekeeper coming in my room? Well, he knew the story to this. And so, but this is what he told me. He said, he goes, I immediately knew what it was, because there was a spirit, if you will, that was going in and out of people's rooms on that floor, like in the middle of the night, waking them up and trying to literally clean their room. Yeah. Now, the backstory to this is that, first let me tell you what it looked like. They said that you could make out like the shape of it, because one day when he responded to some person angry saying that this woman had gone into the bathroom and was messing with stuff, because it was in the dead of night and it was always people seeing it as a shadow. They didn't get a good look at it because obviously, it's dark in people's rooms when they're trying to sleep in the middle of the night. So there may be a little bit of light, from coming from maybe the window or something. Yeah. And all they can ever make out is a shadow. But this entity was seen during the day, but it was seen as a full-on apparition of a female. Then they wore like blue outfits, that showed that they were housekeepers or whatever. And so during the day when she was seen, it was predominantly she was seen as a
housekeeper.
As a housekeeper, yeah. And the other housekeepers would get spooked on that floor, and they would be like, who is this person? They don't work with us, whatever. But she's dressed like we are. And so, but at night, she would go into people's rooms and mess with stuff. People reported hearing like crying in the hallway, just like somebody crying, whatever. Well, anyways, backstory to it was that there was a woman who was a housekeeper who her husband left her, and she went into one of the rooms, came in to work, sad, whatever. This happened back in the 80s, I was told. Was very sad, and went into one of the rooms and shot herself. Oof. Yeah. And so it was very tragic, and it happened on that floor. And so since then, she had been haunting that floor, but she often appeared as a shadow. Now, the guy that told me this is a good friend of mine. And I'll just tell you his name is none of your business. I was about to say it, but I don't. Okay. I don't think he would mind, but I don't really have permission to say it. So, and then he worked downtown for a little while as a bartender. He's pretty well known in Austin, though, and he's pretty open and honest about stuff. He was one of the people that had one of the little people sightings of those little creatures that people would see, monitos as we call them, or duende. But that's another story, and I'll get into that one day. We're going to do another little people one soon, folks, so just bear with us. But he told me, and a group of us actually, that he was getting in the elevator one day, and there was a woman that was in the elevator with him he saw her. It was supposed to be a housekeeper, she was dressed like a housekeeper, but it was like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and he was like, what the heck? Who is this housekeeper that's here? So he asked her, he's like, are you new? And she just kept looking straight ahead and wouldn't respond. And when the elevator door opened, he got off and turned to look back, and there was nobody there. So he saw her. He rode the elevator with this ghost or whatever it was. Now, one night he went up there this happened during shift change, so he had another person with him, And he said that during the I guess the swing shift, there were 2 auditors, and then he would be there at night by himself. So I guess there were like 2 or 3 of them, And so him and one of the guys that was coming off the swing shift, they went upstairs with him to that floor to respond to this person saying that they had a housekeeper that had gone into their room and they didn't understand why. And they heard screaming and yelling and crying, and that she had locked herself in the bathroom. Yeah. So they go into this person's room. The security guard was out in the parking lot, met them up there. They all went into the hotel room. The person was sitting in a little lobby area. I guess they have like chairs, whatever. Well, I know they do. I've been in that hotel. And they have like little chairs in the elevator lobby area of each floor. So he was sitting in there waiting, and he just kind of throws his hands up like, she went to my room and she's in there crying and freaking out, and I don't know what the heck, why would you allow a housekeeper,
come this late at night?
So the guy that's my friend, he was like, okay, I've seen this broad before, and he told the swing shift auditor that had only been working there for a month or so. He goes, this place is haunted. And the guy's like, yeah, I've heard all the stories. He goes, like, he kind of didn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, okay, since you're so brave, you go in and knock on the door. So him and the security kind of just stood back. It's really the security's job, but the security guard and him just kind of he banged on the door, and he's like, ma'am, you need to come out of there. Come out of the bathroom. Well, he hears bang, like on the door, which showed him and the other 2 people that he was with.
She responded
that there was a person in there.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, we're going to kick the door in if you don't come out.
Can they do that?
Well, that's what he told.
I was saying, I was wondering. I don't know if they can do that.
If somebody does go, as we are security guards, I know at
the security
Staybridge,
guard.
Yeah, we would have to, because I was told one time at Staybridge that these people would not leave the hotel, and I know you worked there.
Yeah.
We were told to expurgate them, and so we were told by the management, hey, but the police came, and luckily they just left. But yeah, I guess if you have to get rid of them, you have to get rid of them, and it's all dependent upon what the management tells you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these were just the swing shift and night shift guys, so they're telling him he's trying to get her to open the door, and he hears audible crying. Okay, now eventually the door's locked. Eventually, the door unlocks, and it just goes poof, and then it just kind of opens a little bit. He pushes the door open, and the guy, the guy who was the guy had only been there for about a month, hadn't been there as long as the security guard and our friend, screams, and like literally falls to his knees, like fainting, and then, gathers himself enough to get up, just run out of the room. Did not talk about what he saw because he couldn't breathe. He was gasping. Okay. But what the security guard and what the other guys saw was a black shadow come out, like literally like move like a person, come out of that bathroom and kind of stand there and then zip through the wall really fast. So like they caught a glimpse of that. What the other guy saw, which he didn't talk about, he quit. And then when he went to get his check, he talked to the security guard. He told the security guard this. He says, what I saw was horrific. I saw a woman with half of her face blown off, literally standing in the middle of the bathroom, and she rushed toward me.
Oh my gosh.
And so he basically collapsed, caught himself on the dresser, and then ran out. Okay. Like he stumbled a little further into the room and then ran out. That's what was told to me. Like this guy was like almost running the wrong direction. He was so scared. And so he quit. Now here's the question, like for what are these things? Are they ghosts that and sometimes the ghosts are shadows? Are they demons that are just shadowy entities all the time? Because that would tell you that it is a spirit of some kind that is haunting an area that can appear as an apparition that looks like a person, like that they look like in life, and then it becomes a shadow.
Now, this is just me thinking, but during the day, she would go to work. and she would show up as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Then at night, that's like she's not supposed to be there, but she's still there. So maybe that's like that's when she's like in her spirit form, or like that's when, like the head's blown off or whatever. Like, I don't want to say it like that, but like that's when she is seen as how she was when she died, because that's not what she's used to. Because I've heard a lot of stories of like spirits being seen doing what they did when they were alive,
moving around like they're still alive.
Like their habits, like doing a lot of stuff like they were. Like I remember I heard a story about a guy who, this is real quick, a guy who died, and he would always do the same thing every morning. Of like he would go get coffee, and he would always make coffee in the morning, and that the daughter saw that all the time of her dead dad going and making coffee.
Was that the story that we were talking about when me and Bo were working?
I think so.
Yeah, we were doing, and that old lady had us like doing security for her.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, and that was a little more into it than that. I'll get into that story one day.
Yeah, I think that's the one I was thinking of. But yeah, I mean, like that was her habit, And then when she died, she doesn't know what to do, and she's still there. It's at night. She's not supposed to be there because it's not her habit to be there at night. So she would go and do cleaning.
Yeah.
And then she would cry because she doesn't understand. Like
she's confused.
She's
or whatever.
Very confused because it's nighttime.
But that doesn't excuse her going into people's rooms and taking things. She really needs to get a life. Oh, that was a horrible.
No, that was a horrible joke.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I am so sorry. I didn't mean that. That's not. But whatever. I'm trying to break up because this is a scary subject, and some people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh." Folks, when I make jokes, people are like, "Yeah, you joke too much." Blah blah blah. First of all, that's just who I am.
That's how we are.
That's my personality. I'm an old wise guy, and I always crack.
I don't know
wise.
if we ever have a single like straight moment where. I mean, we have a couple.
We do.
Even during our serious talks, we joke around.
I like to crack wise. See, that's what I do. See, yeah. Well, the point is that's just how I deal with life. Okay, so I'm not trying to be a stand-up comedian over here. I'm not. That's not me. It's just me being funny or whatever, making jokes. Is just who I am. I try to break it up because I've had a lot of people tell me, "Wolf, I love your show. I like the format, whatever, but it's scary." And then they tell me that it's unnerving, and so I like to try to break it up a little bit by giving a little bit of humor there, so you don't just feel like you're in a horror movie all the time.
Well, here's the thing, though: we're not storytellers. I mean, we come here and it's just me and you, and we talk, and we talk and we discuss. And you tell me these stories that I hear for the first time.
Well, not all of them. A lot of them you have. But
you never tell me full details like you do now. So like I hear in their entirety for the first time.
Yeah.
So like when we make crack jokes or we say something, that's just how we are.
Unless it's a story, some of the stories from in the past encounters, like you've gotten off of the email and shown me and say, "Hey, let's look at this."
Yeah.
But usually you don't know the whole entire.
Well, I mean, ever since I started hosting, I haven't been.
Yeah.
Real.
You've done what Sal did and was kind of like, let's surprise me, whatever. But now you've surprised me the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, pretty much any subject out there, I got stories about it. Yeah, but that one was because it's something I've always been interested in is the whole Fortean weird, wacky stuff or whatever. I shadow people are one of those things that are scary. There's no other way to put it. I mean, if you're sitting in your house and you see a shadow moving independently by itself, then there is no other way to put it other than you're going to be terrified. I mean. Unless you're just some sort of weird, person that can, I don't know.
That's just out of place in every way. Like if you see a ghost and it's a humanoid ghost, like when I first saw that lady, I thought it was a lady who was trying to look into this house.
And then you saw she had
I saw she had no legs, and that's what creeped me out because it was unnatural. A shadow person is just 100% unnatural.
Unnatural.
There's no reason for a moving person.
Shadow to move by itself.
There's no reason for it. So it scares you, I think, a little bit more. And also, it being a shadow and having no details, I think maybe is a little bit more scary because you can't recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what it is, what form it is, what it's like, what it looks like. You just see it's a big black blob, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So here's another one. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, that Would you stay in that room after that?
No.
Yeah, like this dude's mad at this, and then this happens. Like what he thinks is there's a housekeeper in my room,
In his room,
and all of a sudden he just sees a black shadow just run and move into a wall.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the guest did.
If the guest was not in the room, that's even worse. Because what do you explain?
I think the guest was sitting out in near the elevator. The way I understood it was in the elevator.
How do you explain that then?
Well, here's a sidelight to that real quick, folks. Here's another little thing. We did security at that place when they remodeled it, and some of the guards that were there at night. Now, it wasn't my account. Now, we in our company, like I had my accounts, and then there was another guy who had his accounts. We all worked for the same company, but at one time, before I became the big shot that I am now, just kidding. Before I became like partners with the guy that I'm with now in the company, I was just like kind of contracting, and I had my little group of dudes, and we had our accounts, and then there were two other guys that were doing the same thing we did, and they had their guys, and they had their accounts or whatever. And so it was like they were subbing it out. You know what I mean?
Like a sergeant, basically, and you had your own guys.
I had my own guys, and we had our own little deal, and then they had their deal or whatever. Well, that's kind of how it was set up back then. But this was not one of my accounts that I managed. But the guy that managed that account, I'd talk to him every day. I'd see him in the office, and he was a manager, and he told me, he goes, "Hey, do you have anybody that can work the name of the hotel?" And I said, I don't want to work that hotel because I'm overstretched as it is. I said, why are you needing people? Because he had a lot of people. And at one point he was asking me if I had some work to throw his people. And I'm like, don't you have enough people? He goes, yeah, but I'm running out. And I said, why? And he said, well, they don't want to work in that hotel. Well, that hotel has a reputation for being haunted, at least amongst people who have or Austinites who've been around for a long time. There's people that have worked there that know that it's haunted, and it wasn't just that one floor. That might be the most activity, but there's another aspect to that place because you'll see things on camera. So I asked him about it, and he said that one of his guards was seeing like what looked like a shadow on the camera, and he kept going up and into one of the floors, not that particular floor that we were talking about. And he saw like at the end of the hallway, this shadow looking thing, and it moved into one of the rooms. And he said that when he looked at the cameras, because then when they were doing the remodeling, like stuff started coming up missing. So they had to put cameras on all the floors, our cameras. He said that when I looked at the camera, I clearly saw my guard go up there, and I reviewed it, and I saw what looked like this shadow looking thing standing at the end of the hallway. And then go into the room.
The guard didn't see it.
The guard did see it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he told him, and he went back to the cameras and he reviewed it with him. And that guard was like, that's why I don't want to work here. And then there was another time where he himself worked there because he didn't have any more guards. And one of these things came like literally a shadow looking thing that he said had no legs, but it had arms. And you could kind of make out like a head came floating down the staircase. And that's when he gave up that account. He was just like, nobody wants to work here. Now I see why. Okay, have a nice time remodeling this place. I'm not going to mess with it. I did talk to one of the guys that did the remodeling. I caught up with him because he's a friend of mine on another job that he was working at a middle school. He was doing construction at a high school. And he told me a little bit about that job. And he said that on that job, there were a lot of people who claimed that the activity had gotten pretty bad during the remodel. And I hear that in hauntings, that there'll be everything's fine, then they go to remodel something, and then all hell breaks loose.
Because you're breaking the norm.
Yeah, and so these spirits are moving around or whatever. And he said that one of the things that they saw regularly were shadows. Shadows in the stairwells, shadows in the hallways, just basically shadow type entities. That were inhabiting that place. But anyway, moving on. I don't know how much time we have here. How much time do we got? We're at, okay. So we got a little time here. There's about 2 or 3 pretty good stories that I'd like to get out about the shadow people. One is now we're talking about the Hat Man. No, what was that? No, did you hear that?
No, I have my headphones in. So what did you hear?
Did you hear that? No, I heard it behind me in the wall. That was weird. I heard like somebody knock on the wall behind me.
The cat?
Okay, let's blame the cat. There we go, folks.
Jeez.
That was kind of creepy because I thought I just saw the cat, but I heard it behind me on the wall.
The cat's,
so let's just say the cat's on the wall. Okay, let's just pretend like that
Mm.
didn't happen. This is creepy. All right. So, anyways, sitting here in the studio, and something just knocked on the wall where there's nobody at. That building next to us, there's nobody there. So I don't know what's going on. So, anyways, we're sitting here, and sometimes we bring our cat. And
we bring our animals.
We bring Banjo, to the studio, or whatever. But the cat will tear up your house if you leave it there. So, anyways, there was this one story that I got, and I showed my wife this one, and we talked about it, and it was crazy. This guy dated a girl that had the Hat Man. Now, you know how sometimes people will see the shadow that looks like a guy wearing a hat.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very disturbing that it would even wear a hat, But this guy said that this woman that he was with, this happened in Indianapolis, Indiana, that he was with a girl who claimed that she was being haunted by the Hat Man. Now, she didn't say the Hat Man, but she said that she called him a man in a hat, but he looked like a shadow. Now, he started dating her, and for a long time, she would never take him back to the house. Her mother and dad were deceased. I guess the dad had died of a heart attack or something at a very young age, and the mother had died in a car wreck in an accident. So she lived in a pretty nice big house, but she would never take the boyfriend there. And even after they got more serious, he had never gone beyond like the foyer in the house. And so he asked her one day, why this was. And like I said, she said that there is this entity that haunts this house, and it's been there since I was a kid, and it's obsessed with me. She's like, it doesn't leave the parameters of the house, though. As long as you're not in the house, you're fine. But she called it the Hat Man, or the man in the hat. Yeah. And so the
cat in the house.
He kind of made a joke about it at first. He was like, well, okay, what is this? Curious George, the man in the hat, whatever. And he thought that's ludicrous. Okay. And he thought maybe she's crazy, maybe she's not, but he said she was really very pretty and very level-headed, and they had met in school, whatever, and going to college. And he said that they had met at some school or whatever they went to. And so he said that they started dating, and it went on for almost a year. But she was always adamant about staying the night at his place, never going to stay at her place. And so he said, this is weird. We're on this, and this ghost, or whatever you call it, is so protective that we can't go to your house. He got suspicious.
I mean, I would understand why, but
yeah, but he kind of went to an area where I wouldn't have gone. He began to go over to her house and kind of look in the windows and try to see. You know what I mean?
That's a bit stalkerish.
Yeah, it's kind of stalkerish, but I think he was trying to figure out what the deal was.
I can understand what his mindset be like. Does she have another guy, and that's the reason she?
Yeah,
doesn't.
and that's what it was. So, but he never saw anything. He claims he never saw anything. Walked around the back and went into the there was a garage that was detached from the house, like a little garage area. He said it was kind of creepy. He went in there, and it was kind of creepy. And then one day he just told her point blank, he's like, look, I'm going to be real honest with you. He goes, I don't believe all this. You need to tell me what's going on, why we can't go inside your house. And he was like, I think that if it's that bad, then you should sell the house. Well, she said that she didn't want to sell the house because she felt like if she got rid of the house, that it would leave and maybe follow her. Like she just had this feeling. It was like a feeling, she told him. So he just thought, this is preposterous, So this is the story, okay? And me and my wife, we were talking about it, we were joking about it the other day. It's not funny, but I don't really know how to deal with this without just it kind of being funny, So I made a joke about it because I don't really. It's not that I'm trying to make fun of you, dude, that told me this story or that gave me this story.
Yeah, we don't make light of it.
We're not making light of it. I just don't know what to make of it.
We make funny of it to bring to make it easier to digest, basically.
Yeah. So I kind of made a joke about it, to my wife, but here's the thing. He finally got her to let him stay the night there. Nothing happened. It was an ordinary house. He went all through the house. Nothing happened. She took him on a little tour of the house or whatever. It wasn't a gigantic house. It was a 3-bedroom house. It was big, but a big 3-bedroom house. Now, he did say that there was an upstairs, but the upstairs was really small. It wasn't like it was like there was just like one area which should have been like the attic that they had kind of remodeled and made into like a whatever. He said he felt very uncomfortable in that area. But otherwise, there was nothing that was out of the ordinary. It was just that particular part of the house. And so he said that one night they were getting hot and heavy, and they were in the process of beginning to
so they were
have relations.
Yeah, they were having relations.
Okay. And he said that this thing, as he called it, a black shadow, came out of the closet and stood looking right at him. And he said it had red eyes and it looked like the shape of a man wearing a hat. And he said, I kid you not, it was it was staring right at me. He goes, and I'm doing what I'm doing. And she's totally oblivious to this thing standing there. And he said that there was light, but it was dim. And this thing was staring right at him while he was,
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, he just freaked out and he froze up. And then he just he stopped altogether and just sat there with his mouth open, what is this thing, He said at that point, it literally walked. It didn't float or anything like that. It walked, went around the other side of the bed and kind of walked out of the bedroom. And he jumped off of her and he was like, oh my gosh, what was that? And she goes, I told you, there is an entity in this house.
So she knew immediately what it was.
She knew what it was because she, she's like, I told you that there is an entity and it says very protective of me. She's like, it's never hurt me, or whatever, but it does scare me sometimes. She's like, and she doesn't like that sometimes it'll watch her, Now, most of the Hat Man stories I've gotten, pretty much all of them, have been involved just them being terrorizing people, basically. I know that one of them was a story that I told on Vic's show on Dogman Encounters where there was a dog man that was being seen in the window and there was a shadow man that was also terrorizing the little boy. And so I don't know what, and what to make of that, But there was this whole, paranormal thing going on in that house. And this was out in the country, near my hometown. But this happened, this guy said, this happened, I think he said it was in the early 2000s or whatever. And then he said that after that, his phone started ringing while he was at work or whatever. And one day, it would be the number, because back then people had landlines and cell phones,
So it'd be the landline.
It was the landline from the house, and they would not talk. They would just call. And then he said that one day he went to answer his phone, and his phone literally popped and he backed up, and it was it just busted, his phone just popped. And he said that it scared him so bad he fell backwards and he hit his head, and he had to go to the hospital. And he was convinced at that point that this entity was doing that, was manipulating him with that, So he went and he got a new phone, and some other stuff happened. He said that the phone calls continued, and she kept saying, "It's not me. I'm not doing it." And he goes, "Well, somebody's calling me." And then he thought, maybe it's her just messing with him. But he did see that entity, and he hadn't been back to the house since that had happened. Well, one day he gets a call, and it's her, and she says, "Will you come see me? I want you to come to the house. I need you. I need you now." And he said it was her voice and everything. He shows up. He goes. He goes inside the house. Just kind of knocks once. The door is unlocked. He walks in. Didn't see her car there though, which was odd.
No.
And so he goes, yeah. So he hears somebody say, "I'm up here." So he goes up the stairs. He gets up to the halfway up the stairs, and this thing is standing at the top of the stairs, and it begins to run towards him. just like a man would run, like it was, like a flesh and blood man, but it was completely black and it had red eyes and it had this hat and it came barreling down the stairs at him. So he turned to run away and he said that it leapt on top of him and it felt just like a man on his back. And it began to like wrap itself around him and it basically tackled him. And he went down onto the floor and he began to scream and yell and whatever. And just then his girlfriend, almost was going to say her name, but his girlfriend, she showed up and goes, inside. She because he said she had a glass door that you could see, the panel, you could see directly through it. So she sees him and she goes up to the door and she's on the porch and she starts shaking the door and the door is locked. And she said that she was screaming and slapping he said she was screaming and slapping the glass. And finally he felt this pressure like come off of him, like it kind of dissipated. And then she opened the door and ran inside and he asked her what she saw, like as they talked about it over the next day or two, and she said that it looked like just something black on top of him, but she knew what it was, and so that was kind of the end of it. They stopped seeing each other and that was it.
I'm surprised it took that long. I was going to say
well, he was in love with her. And now here's the thing. There was another story that he was told
from her
about another guy that was her ex-boyfriend and it was her high school sweetheart and they had been together for a while. And this was when her mom was still alive. And she said that it was her first time. Okay. And they were getting ready to do whatever. And that this thing came behind him, literally, like she saw it come out of the closet and grab him and pull him off the bed and begin to choke him from behind. Like a rear naked choke. You know what I mean? Like choke. And that she witnessed this. And she said that he ran out of the house and they never talked again, That was it. He was just like, you know what? That's too weird for me. I can't, so it broke her heart. And he said he had to do the same thing. He did say that after they stopped seeing each other, there was no more like weird stuff, no more phone calls, no more weird dreams. He said he was having weird dreams. So all of that was based around just being in that house, I did ask him, I said, did you ever run into her again? He said, yeah, I ran into her. It was a coffee shop that we both like to go to. And he said that I saw her in there a couple times, and they talked, briefly, whatever, but never anything about, what had happened, what had transpired. In his mind, what he believes is this thing tried to kill him. And what I have come to kind of believe from talking to this guy and getting the stories and all that, I think he's correct. I think that this thing has some sort of parasitic relationship with her where it feeds off of her. And I think that's all it is. And I think that it's parasitic and that it keeps everyone else away from her to keep her like to itself. That's what I believe. I mean, I threw that out there to him and he kind of agreed with that, but and I'm making light of it was because the way that it was,
and the way it happened
coming out while he's doing stuff, it's like,
I mean,
I don't know about, it's just, so what do you think of that? I mean,
I think, what can I say? I think that if we had him, we could have done a lot better, or the Cowboys could have done a lot better. So I think they need to decide to scout him.
A tackler?
A tackler. I think, come on.
He's got a great form tackle.
He got one guy from behind, knocked him straight to the ground. Another guy, UFC could take him too.
Oh,
all kidding aside, it seems like a very serious situation. I don't know what, he could do to even, I'm surprised it took that long for him to leave. That it almost killed him, I thought that maybe he would have left the first time he saw it.
Yeah, the first time to me was like foreboding, like a warning.
It's a warning. It came right up to you and just stared at you.
Look, and I'm right here. I don't like you. I don't like what you're doing. He said, and then he was getting phone calls. And he continued to date her or go out with her, and they was getting serious. I mean, they were talking about selling that place and moving in together. He was trying to talk her into it. And then it decides to be proactive and call him.
That might be it. That might be the thing.
That's what I think. I think it's a parasitic entity. There was a guy. Here's another real short one, real quick. We don't have a lot of time left, folks, but I'm going to give you a little short one. There was a guy that years ago told me that he lived in a house that was haunted. Weird stuff was happening. Nothing serious, like the weirdest thing that ever happened was like a spoon flew off of his plate, which is enough for most people.
That's a serious thing.
That's enough for most people to be like, I'm done. But he said that in the big scheme of things, it was like that was the only real, like hard, tangible evidence that he could ever see, But there was a shadowy type entity that would appear at times near the fireplace, and it would move around in that general vicinity. It was an old house where the fireplace was built into the middle of the house type thing, and he said that it would just kind of hover around that area.
Wait, so like, there's like an island, basically, kind of?
Yeah, the fireplace was like an island.
Okay.
Yeah, the way he described it to me, and it was built like a cabin. This happened, and this was up in Wyoming, and he said that it was basically like a cabin, is what it was. But he lived there for a while, and he had a girlfriend or companion, whatever, that had come and was staying with him for a little while, and this shadowy entity leapt on top of her one time, and he saw it. Like he literally came into the bedroom and saw it on top of her, and it looked like it was trying to choke her, like it was trying to kill her, like it was literally trying to, not in the sense that. And I asked him, "What do you mean by choke?" He says, "Not in the sense that it was choking with its hands, but like it was trying to go into her, like it was like it was moving into her mouth." Yeah, and it was weird. And then there was another incident, another short little quick story I got from a listener that said that one of these things spoke to it. That spoke to them. Like they encountered one in the hallway, and that literally, like she said that she was like, "Who are you?" And it said Underling.
What is?
I don't know what that means.
That's all he said too, was just Underling.
Mm-hmm. And then just went through like a wall. So that was weird. I mean, and that was a very short little story. She said, "It's like nothing ever really weird has ever happened to me." She's like, "I ran into went on a retreat." She said they were in Connecticut, somewhere in Connecticut or something, on some sort of retreat or whatever, or maybe it was Massachusetts. I got to look. It was somewhere in the Northeast. And she said that she walked into the hallway and kind of bumped into what felt like a person, And she was like, "Oh," and then she looked up. She was kind of bleary-eyed because the bathroom, they all had like one bathroom for like 5 rooms. And then she said that it was dark in the hallway, and this person was like a shadowy-looking person. And she backed up, and she was like, "Who are you?" When she asked, and it said Underling, and then just went into the wall. And she's like, at that moment, I knew that it was not a person and that it was just a shadow. And she said that she could see it. There was a light down at the end of the hall, and it illuminated enough to where she could see that this thing had no features or anything. So what is to be made of that? And I got other shadow stories. I could go on and on. I got some about a dog that was a shadowy demon dog that, like, kind of like the one in Detroit. I got one of those not too long ago. Somebody that had this shadowy dog type creature that attacked their dog in the backyard. But that's a whole other story, And then I got another one about it was kind of like a dog man type thing. We've covered that, a few times, where they look like shadows or whatever. One that was like a Sasquatch looking creature, And we're gonna do some more Bigfoot stuff coming up too. I got quite a bit of Bigfoot stuff to unload. So, folks, that's I guess that's the show for today. Tony's trying to
I was just thinking because you kept
this,
talking and I was trying to word this in, but I'm just joking. But
go ahead.
I was going to say real quick, like, do you ever? It makes you wonder, like, what would have happened if he never went into the house? Like, if he just like listened to her.
Well,
and
that's a good
out.
question. Let's ponder that for a second.
Like, what if, like, maybe it attached to him somehow, and that's why it could affect him? Like, what if he just never went in and
And then he got her to sell the house, and then they get married, and they live happily ever after.
Well, who knows? It could follow her.
Then when she has the baby, it comes out, and it's like a shadow.
Jeez.
That, and you're like, what? Really? Now I know what was going on. Okay, and I apologize for that, sir. I did not mean. I'm sorry. I just, I mean, and I spoke to you on the phone, and he seems like a pretty funny guy. We kind of talked about stuff, and he just gave me his encounter. But yeah,
it's a good encounter. I mean,
and I'm not trying, and I wasn't trying to make fun. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to make fun, but I'm just. It is a heartbreaking story too, in the way that it made me feel sad because you know that this woman, it's like she's hostage to that, but she wouldn't let go. It's like she wouldn't let go of I don't know.
I mean, maybe the thing is she does need to sell the house. Maybe that's it's trying to make her think like, if you sell the house, I'll follow you. And the fact that it doesn't want her to sell the house because it can't follow her.
Maybe it's stuck.
Maybe it's stuck, and it's kind of just making her think that if you leave, I'll follow you.
Well, demons lie.
Tell her to sell the house. If you find her again and you're listening, try to get her, and you ever run into her again, just try to get her to sell the house. Maybe that will help her.
Another thing, too, I asked this question to him. I said, do you think it might have been the spirit of her dad or somebody?
That's what I thought at first, too.
She said that she had been seeing it since she was a child, and her dad had died of cancer when she was like 14 or 15. So, I think he said she was 14. So, yeah, and so it wasn't the dad. The mom and dad knew of it, had seen it, but this was just kind of there, you know? So
how sad that it parasitized her as a child and followed her and just... So she's been living in that house since she was a child. Mm-hmm. I think she should just sell the house.
Maybe she already has.
Hopefully she has. Hopefully she has, and it left her alone. And like it was just stuck to
I'm going to give a suggestion in all seriousness, dude. I think that she needs to look into turning it into a brothel.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and then the thing will be just so confused that it won't know.
There's so much. What if it's like a Jason?
It won't know who to attack.
Yeah, like it's not really like it doesn't really care about the people, but it just doesn't like the act itself.
So yeah,
like Jason. So it just every time he can sense it. I'm convinced that
Jason doesn't have privates, and that's why he's angry when people are doing it. Yeah, so he goes and he tries to kill him with a machete.
I mean, it's just so suspicious that every time they do it, he kills them.
You're like, Jason, okay, we know you have a tiny one. That's why you're so angry.
I know you're mad. You're like, you've been in that water all this time, so it shrunk up. So
because he was in the water. Or whatever. Yeah. So basically, you're saying that this guy, this entity, is jealous because he can't do it. So that's why I said.
Well, I mean, he never mentioned anything about it having anything, so I doubt it. But I mean, in all seriousness, if you do run into her again, try to get her to sell the house. Who knows? It might anger her off too. Like I can't really tell you like that would help either.
Yeah,
but it seems like a solution.
I'm not gonna call him up and tell him, "Hey, go find her." And
I'm not gonna say like.
In fact, I think he's actually with someone else now.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not a good idea to tell her to sell the house. Like I don't want to make it worse if I do say that on my own conscience. But if I had to take a guess, that seems like it might be wanting her to stay there because.
Well, it's obviously feeding.
It's obviously feeding.
I believe that. That's what I believe. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. Tonight, whatever, and from whatever part of the galaxy you're from, whatever spaceship you're in, whatever planet you're on, whatever house you're being haunted in, whatever dogman's den you're being chased out of,
whatever forest you're foolishly staying in,
surrounded by bugs and spiders and thugs. Good night.
Good night.